All right. You guys know what time it is. It's AT time. All right, we're going to talk about the chance of some storms coming up here for your latter part of your weekend. So I'll give a few seconds here, let some people jump in. I don't know if there's a Thunder game on tonight or not. I can't keep track of those guys. Half the time when I do this, there is one. And you guys pick the Thunder over me. It's terrible. No, I understand. Okay, so I'll tell you what. We've got about 1,000 of you here. Let's talk about it. Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle. So thanks for joining me. I'm gonna make this really short, probably about 5 minutes. And the forecast is actually gonna crawl at the top, so you don't have time to watch the whole video. You can get the gist of it that way. But thanks for being here. And you know what I like to do, and that is get into the details of what you can expect with the storms. So again, things are quiet now, looking great Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Even most of Sunday looks good too. And then we'll talk about storm system making its way into the Central Plains states and what that means for Oklahoma. So let's go ahead and get on to the maps here. And first thing we're going to show you is this upper level low pressure system anchored out across Colorado. Now, with this particular system, it's pretty far removed from Oklahoma. Now, the trough axis comes in like this, and this little color you see here is mid-level energy associated with it. We call this subtle lifting. In other words, we see the brighter colors on here, that's more forceful lifting. In other words, brute forcing. Really kind of helps to get those storms just to fire up no matter what, even if you're lacking moisture. When it's subtle, that's not necessarily the case. So you need some other factors at play. Well, if we take a look at the jet in the upper levels of the atmosphere, this is way up there, 18,000 feet or so. It's a favorable position right here across the northern half of the state, really. So this is where the enhancement region will be, where the air comes up into the top of the what would be a thunderstorm cloud and gets out of there, just like sucks up like a vacuum cleaner. So as that happens, that helps really pull that air up and get those thunderstorms to develop. So that's kind of a rising motion, if you will, at that level. And then we have a mid-level short wave that'll be coming in, which will provide a little bit of a wind speed. That's this little area right here. And this is all for Sunday late afternoon. We're talking about 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And so the timing is pretty good as far as a couple of these parameters to get some storms to form. So we've got some, these are the wind fields in the atmosphere. So we got some good wind is what I'm trying to tell you. And we got a storm system coming in from the west. Now, down a little closer to the surface, just a few thousand feet up, you have also what we call some mid-level lift. And this is where you really get what we call vertical motion or vertical velocity. Well, if you look right here in this red shading, there's a lot of it concentrated right here. Now, what that typically means for this time of the year is that's a lot of motion being pulled together that's rising along a dry line. So this is at 700 millibars. So we've got the vertical lift at this level. So you've got some vorticity in the atmosphere. You've got some vertical motion in the lower levels of the atmosphere. You've got the winds helping the vertical motion in the upper atmosphere. So far, so good. Let's see what else we got. Well, we could take a look at the moisture field. And the models are hinting that there will be enough moisture pooling along this dry line. This is up from surface up to about 700 millibars, where we should get some towering Q. So towering Q is short for cumulus, which means cumulus congestus, where you've got just bubbles up, those little cotton balls that go up, get really thick, and they kind of start to grow into eventually the cumulonimbus, which is the thunderhead. So it looks like, according to this anyway, we have plenty of ingredients to help see that happen. Now the dry line itself will be, let's see here, anchored really from near Kansas City all the way back into west central Oklahoma down to northwest Texas. There's actually two areas of surface low pressure. There's one right here in southwest Oklahoma. There's one up north, farther up the road up toward Kansas City. Now, the deal with the winds around low pressure, they kind of form counterclockwise. They kind of feed into that low pressure area. So this kind of helps convergence along the dry line in this area. So the most likely area for storms to develop is likely going to be in southwest Oklahoma, say around Lawton area. Somewhere in that vicinity, those would trigger there, then they drift off to the northeast into close to, say, Oklahoma City metro area. So that would be where we would focus our attention for that particular development. And dew point values in here are progged to be in the low to mid 60s. Now this is an aggressive model. Other models say upper 50s. And so far, the problem we've had this spring has been a lack of adequate, deep, sustainable moisture. So it's yet to be determined as to whether or not this will pan out. But it does produce some significant Kate values up around 3,500 joules in a very narrow corridor. Now, I don't like to see these parameters that narrow. It means you've given the storms a very small window to actually get going and then to track through and feed in the atmosphere. So that's not exactly great for a long-lived event nor a widespread event. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. Sometimes you get a couple of supercells that kick some butt, drop some hail and some wind, and you've got a problem. Now, we've got the instability with the cape, some of the moisture, all that stuff. What about the cap in the atmosphere? In other words, it's a lid or an inversion layer that prevents storms from forming. We've got a very strong cap over the eastern half of the state. Unbreakable, not going to happen. In other words, bone dry, no storms, no rain. If you look out west of the dry line, another strong cap. This colored area here means not going to happen. But what you have right here in the middle, in this little fine corridor, which is right along the dry line, you have values at around minus 50 down around minus 25 on the SIN. Now that should be breakable. Should be. Most of the time you can break a SIN value of minus 50 as a rule of thumb. So, and I think we should be able to break it. Now the model, this is the rainfall output. In other words, the radar future forecast, as you will. And guess what? It doesn't produce any storms here. Bone dry. Says it's not going to happen. So the cap's going to hold. It doesn't think maybe the moisture is adequate enough, or that subtle lifting is just a little too subtle, and so nothing happens. It's a nice quiet evening on Sunday, no big deal. Now, not all models say this. A couple of them do produce a couple of supercells here over central Oklahoma. Now, if you look at the sounding, it is a potent sounding in that we have adequate wind shear, which is the winds turn with height from the surface on up to the mid-levels. They go from a south to a southwest to a westerly direction. Also, the algorithms for supercell development do produce some significant hail and some significant supercells. It's got hail size estimates up around baseballs if that were to happen. The SIN value is around minus 58, CAPE around 3,300. So a lot of these parameters look pretty decent for severe weather, and it does produce an environment where tornadoes are possible. Now, keep in mind, this is beyond the 48-hour window that I preached to you about, and so that means a lot of things can change. And I would expect this to change a little bit as well as we go through time. The big question is, will the moisture be there? So if it's not there, you got nothing to worry about at all. It'll be a quiet evening for your Sunday. If we can break through the cap, just enough moisture pools in a couple of areas, we'll get a couple of supercells. They'll have some hail and wind with them, and we'll probably have to watch for an isolated tornado. But again, we're at 72 hours out, so I caution you to put too much into this. I want to give you a heads up because tomorrow night's Friday night. That'll be once we get into the 48-hour window, and I might be a little bit busy doing other things to give you a Facebook Live. And I'll be tied up on Saturday most of the day too, so I'm not sure when I'll be able to give you the next update. So I went ahead and give you something now, just so you'll know what's in the planning stages. And then after this, quiet again. And then we get a good storm system that comes in here Wednesday of next week. But it is a rain maker, not a severe weather maker. And it is going to be copious amounts of moisture with this one. So we should get several inches of rain, likely get some flooding in some areas. And it looks like the way things are going, it's going to help to eradicate what's left of the drought that we started out the year with. So that's some great news. Now, long term, it looks fairly quiet for a storm season, at least for April anyway. I do expect things the latter part of April to start picking up, but as late as it's getting going, as far as reaching our average event of severe weather events, I'm not sure going to be able to make that. It has to be a very active last week or two of April and a very active May for that to happen. And the season would have to extend past our point in June. So I don't know. It's yet to be determined as to whether or not we end up with a near average season at the end of it as far as severe weather goes. But in the short term, we do have the potential, like I said, for Sunday evening and then also for some good rain in here on Wednesday. So that is just a quick Facebook update live for you. I want to thank you for joining me here at AT's Weather. You are now up to date with the latest of what you can expect for the weekend. Other than that, beautiful weather out there. Get out there and have a great time. All right, we'll talk soon.